Another highly successful horror film of the 90s, slasher horror to be specific, with a budget of 24 million and a box office of 172 million. Great numbers. This movie had scores of 63 by Metacritic and Internet Movie Database. You had Rotten Tomatoes give it 82, and then Google users gave it up to 89. Sydney and tabloid reporter Gail survived the events of the first movie, but their nightmare isn't over. When two college students are murdered at a sneak preview of Stab, a movie based on the events from the first film, it's clear that a copycat killer is on the loose. Sydney and Gail, as well as fellow survivors, Dewey and Randy, have to find out who's behind this new murder spree before they all end up dead. Now, I thought this movie was interesting for a number of reasons. I think the main reason being that not only did I think it was the perfect follow-up to the first film, it also highlighted a major discussion that has taken place for a long time, and that is, do horror movies cause violence? Do they cause real-life violence? Now, here's how Common Sense Media breaks down the synopsis here, and then I'll get into the rest. Scream 2 starts with the stabbing deaths of a couple, played by Omar Epps and Jada Pinkett, in a movie theater by an assailant wearing the same black robe and mask from the first movie. Meanwhile, survivor Sidney Prescott is in college. This new spate of murders and further threatening phone calls from the unknown killer bring massive media attention to the university, including a return visit from the sensationalist reporter Gail Weathers, Woodsboro deputy Dewey Riley, and even the twitchy innocent man Liv Schreiber, who plays Cotton Weary, that Sydney mistakenly accused of killing her mother years before. Randy, played by Jamie Kennedy, now a film student, compares what's going on to the time-worn cliches in the slasher movies that he's watched. Now, as far as positive role models in the movie, or positive messages, tough, plucky central figure Sidney Prescott is, as always, the most normal among a cast of shifty, possible mass murder suspect. David Arquette's character, Dewey, is goofy, but certifiably a nice guy. Now, again, something that is strange that I'm seeing right here, I see about, 76 plus 12, that would be 88. So 88 reviews amongst parents and kids. Only 12 of them are parents and 76 are kids. All right. This one right here says, great TV series, good for a horror film series, not for young children, but teens will enjoy. Okay, this is actually talking about the second movie, not the TV show, but I agree either way. The TV show, in my opinion, was just as great as the movies. TV show was greatly underrated. I give that a 10. Now, is it any good? Scream 2 mainly works on the level of a fiendish, darkly humorous murder mystery, given that the sequel to the blockbuster shocker Scream was cranked out rapidly. Premiering in theaters a year after the hugely profitable original, the quality is actually pretty good. Once again, it's a sharp whodunit swathed in the cliches of a Hollywood slasher horror film with characters who are amusingly aware of how these things normally play out. In this feature, the clever banter is broadened to include the alleged racism when black characters are the first to die. You might remember Omar and Jada, where they played Phil and Maureen. And the effects of violence in cinema and TV spilling into real-life mayhem. You might remember Get Rich or Die Trying. But those dialogues rarely go deep into the topic or take any definite moral position. Maybe because the casualties are no longer underaged, or the slashing isn't quite so savage, or maybe even because there's a growing affection between squabbling Gail and Dewey. The results don't feel quite as grisly. Still, this movie is a solid R for content and therefore is not recommended for kids, tweens, or younger teens. Thank you for pointing that out, as I always have. Talk to your kids about Families can talk about the sneaky way the script talks up the effects of violence in the media upon society. Even the killer's secret game plan involves the controversy, but indulges in the same violence. Is Scream 2 making a serious point about the negative effects of screen terror, or just pretending to while it becomes a thrill ride massacre itself? I would almost say it's a half and half, but I lean a little bit more towards the latter as opposed to the former. That actually brings me to the next. So that brings me to this. And I had to Google this question just to see what kind of results I get here. And I still lean towards I don't think that horror movies really cause real life violence. I mean, if people are doing that, there's something wrong with them. I watch horror movies all the time, and none of these movies have made me want to do anything that obviously I wasn't supposed to do. Between all the Scream movies, all the Jason, Freddy, Chucky movies, and Texas Chainsaw, Halloween, just a lot of things that I watch. According to Ivy Panda, horror movies do not make people aggressive. This is mainly because aggression is caused in many ways, namely intrinsic and or extrinsic, meaning natural and or unnatural, factors. For instance, aggression can be caused by fatigue, anger, attitude, and environmental factors like frequent experience of violence at home or in the neighborhood. This one right here, according to Harmonia Mentis, watching horrific images can trigger unwanted thoughts and feelings and increase levels of anxiety or panic, and even increase our sensitivity to startle eliciting stimuli, making those of us who are anxious more likely to respond negatively and misinterpret the sensations as real threats. Do horror movies have negative effects? This is according to Calmary. Although horror movies may positively impact mental health, it's vital to be cautious while using them as a coping tool. In some cases, they may cause more harm than good. Horror movies can negatively affect sensitive people and people with mental health problems, increasing stress, anxiety, panic, and depression. Do horror movies cause trauma? Yes, some researchers do believe that the typical physical reaction to arousing movies results in the release of opiate endorphins. Addiction to trauma, such as in viewing frightening films, is tied up in biology. That is, the films rev up the body's sympathetic nervous system, inducing stress and anxiety. Can watching horror films be harmful to our children? This is according to parents.com. Dry recommends not introducing them to very young kids because of the potential to create long-term anxiety. Around age 4, kids are figuring out how to manage fears that naturally develop in childhood, and layering scary movies on top of that could be overwhelming. And that goes back to the comment that I read earlier where somebody was talking about their kid was traumatized for watching Scream. Now, I don't know if that child was as young as 4. As I said before, they could have been 8, even 9. I would say anything that is under the preteen age. So we're talking under 10 to 12. And that's probably why that child was scared and why they got into the garage and tried to mimic the whole Tatum situation. So that's why I say it's, again, I don't tell people what to do. I'm not a parent. I can't tell other parents how to raise their kids or anything like that. But there's a reason why these movies aren't for kids. No matter how much we enjoy them, for as much as I love the Scream series, for as much as I love Halloween, Jason, Freddy, all that stuff, if I had a young child, I wouldn't let them watch it. Any more than I would let them play violent video games like Mortal Kombat or, even other games at the level of like a Grand Theft Auto or even Call of Duty, like just stuff like that. So anything that has that amount of blood, gore, violence, fighting, death, all that stuff, destruction, chaos, and fear, I would just say no. Not to anybody who's under preteen. I wouldn't do that. So I would say that that's a major reason that I like this movie, because it kind of highlights that question. Now, to go to the reviews on Google to see what they had to say. And by the way, so most of the people from Scream 1 had reprised their roles in the second movie. So Neve Campbell and Courtney Cox did Sidney and Gale, David Arquette as Dewey, Jamie Kennedy as Randy, and then you had Sarah Michelle Gellar as Cece. Cotton Weary was played by Liev Schreiber. I think that's how you pronounce his name. Liev Schreiber or Schreiber or Schreiber. I want to say Liev Schreiber. That's what I really want to say that's how his name pronounced. You had Timothy Olyphant playing Mickey. Laurie Metcalf playing Nancy. And I will say this, and then you also had, let me make sure I get this right, because some of these names I don't know. Jerry O'Connell played Derek. And then Elise Neal played Hallie, who was Sydney's best friend in this movie. Rebecca Gayheart played Lois. Portia de Rossi played Murphy. Dwayne Martin played Joel. Great amount of them in here. There's a great cast right here. Luke Wilson as himself as Billy Loomis in the Stab movies, and Heather Graham as herself as Casey Becker, also from Stab. So I do want to say that there was also, so this was something I didn't learn until recently, that there was apparently something came out back then where, so the script that we see now, this was not the original script. The original script was that the killers were going to be Derek and Hallie. That's interesting. And apparently the reason why they had to switch that script is because it somehow got leaked out. I don't know how that happened, but they switched it up. And then, of course, the killers turned out to be who they are. Most of the Scream fans know who they are. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, that must mean you didn't see the movie. And this is something that I would highly suggest you watch. This movie is available to watch on Max currently. I don't know how long it's going to be on there, but catch it while you can in case you haven't seen it. If you like horror films, you like slashers, this one right here is the one to go to. I don't see how you could watch the other ones and not watch this one. I really don't see that. But now let's get to some of the reviews. Let me see if these negative reviews make any sense. 1 star, I really didn't like this movie. I tried to, but I really don't. There are some parts I do like. It was sad to see Randy go, but it's just my opinion. So if you like this movie, go ahead. Okay, I think that's fair. One of the most useless movies I've seen for a very long time. So dumb and too predictable, very annoying, and at a time, waster, and a time waster. I'm sorry. I'm just, I'm losing it right now. And a time waster. I won't suggest to anybody. I just wasted my precious time. I would have given this a 0 star. It was bad directing with no real human connection. The movie is total garbage and a waste of time. I think there was a little bit of a human connection between, I would say, Sydney and Derek, who were boyfriend and girlfriend at the time. They don't know how to make a horror movie. The fact that Dewey survived is truly unbelievable. But then I'm almost willing to bet that this is the same person who said that it was unbelievable that he died in the 5th movie. So it's kind of like make up your mind. And the way that he got cut up in this movie wasn't anywhere near as badly as how Chad got cut up in the 5th and 6th movies. That was more unbelievable. But nevertheless, Chad survived and Dewey survived up until the 5th movie. Now let's get to the more positive ones. One of my personal favorites of Wes Craven, this along with the first one, is a must-see if you like this genre. I would give the movie a 10, as I would the first movie. So both movies deserve a 10. I think the third one gets an 8, in my opinion, 8, 8.5. The fourth one for sure a 10. The fifth one, 9, 9.5. And the sixth one also a 10. Scream 2 was an awesome sequel. I wouldn't say it's better than its first film, but Wes Craven did a great job with directing the film, and it's a great film to enjoy with family and friends. Kevin Williamson did great with writing the story and coming up with the scripts. I like a few of the characters in this movie. Scream 2 will be known as one of the greatest sequels that came out in 1997. I like this movie since I was a kid. I had been a fan of Ghostface since I was little. It's very scary and a classic horror film. I wasn't a fan of Ghostface as a kid because I didn't know anything about Ghostface as a kid. But hey, glad you're a fan. Truly one of my favorites from the series. I remember being 7 years old and it was on TV. Yeah, I never would have known about that at 7. It was a scene with Sarah Michelle Gellar gets chased at the sorority house and thrown from the balcony. That scene is so iconic to me, in my opinion. When I was old enough to watch the whole movie, I always remember sitting on the floor and taking my eyes off the screen. I think they remember probably never taking my eyes off the screen, but maybe. This is my top movie from the 4. Because at the time, I guess this person wrote the review at the time. The 4th movie had just got done and just like right before the 5th one came out. Positives, great acting, great score once again, great twist, better than the original. Now that part I will say, I think the plot twist in this movie was definitely much better than the plot twist from the original, because it was obvious that it was Billy and Stu once it got to a point. But in this particular movie here, I had no idea that, first of all, one of the killers lied about what her name was, and then once her real name got revealed, that was one plot twist, but then the plot twist right after that was her motive. And it had something to do with somebody from the first movie. All the Scream fans know what I'm talking about. If you didn't see the movie, you're missing out. So that's what I would say. Check the movie out on Max if you haven't seen it. I'll be talking about other Scream movies pretty soon. I got the reviews for the third and fourth movie coming up. So like and subscribe. There will be more.